Well, good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, and I welcome everybody to the Board of Commissioners public hearing on the comprehensive plan amendments. And today, we're indeed blessed to have back Dr. Michael Lewis, from the lead pastor at Roswell Street Baptist Church, to lead us in our invocation. So those who are willing and able, please stand.
Heavenly Father, we're so grateful that we could bow before your throne at the beginning of this day and the beginning of this meeting of Cobb County Commission. And Lord, we invoke your presence and we pray for your wisdom today. Lord, we think of the words of the psalmist in Psalm 133, where he said, "How good and how pleasant it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together in unity. It's like the dew on Mount Hermon. It's like the oil that flowed down the head and into the beard of Aaron." And Father, we pray for that refreshing presence that you would give us today. We thank you, Lord, for the blessing of living in this community, of living in Cobb County. And Lord, we pray, even as we talk about the different areas of our community today, we pray for your blessing upon every home. We pray for peace in our community. We're thankful, Lord, for our law enforcement. We're thankful for our public safety. We're thankful, Lord, for our military. And we pray, Father, that your hand would be upon us, that you would bless Cobb County, and that you would bless the United States of America. And we humbly pray this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, Dr. Lewis. And those who've never had a chance to eat at his wonderful church there, don't pass up the opportunity. He's got a great kitchen staff there. Thank you again for coming again, sir. Okay, so with that, now declare this public hearing open on the 2019 Comprehensive Plan Amendments. And Jason, you have the floor.
All right. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Jason Gaines with Cobb Community Development, and this is our annual meeting to make amendments to Cobb County Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use Plan. Just to clarify a little bit of confusion that may have taken place at the Planning Commission meeting last week, I just wanted to open with just a brief little summary of what the comprehensive plan is and what this hearing is all about. These are proposed changes to the county's comprehensive plan, which was last updated in 2017 as far as a full comprehensive update, if you will. We go through this annual process to make changes to the plan and the map based on things that have happened in the past year as it relates to zoning actions. So just to clarify for the public, these actions today are not rezonings. They don't change how property can be used. They are part of the considerations looked at when rezonings occur, but they themselves do not change how land is used. So I just wanted to clarify that for anyone here today or anyone who may be at home watching on television. So next, I'll get a little bit into the three types of amendments that we have and the process for how the meeting will be conducted. So we have three types of comprehensive plan amendments. The first, zoning decisions, and those items result from rezoning actions that occur over a one-year period from October of 2017 through September of 2018. So if a property was rezoned and the zoning that was approved goes against the future land use plan or is not compatible with the future land use plan, then that item is brought here before you to decide whether or not you want to change the future land use map and comprehensive plan to line up with the zoning that was approved. So those are the zoning decisions. Then we have commissioner proposals, which are items that you all as individuals have directed staff to bring to you for consideration of, again, future land use map changes and or text amendments to the comprehensive plan. Then the third item, or the third type of item, is staff proposals. And those items are typically cleanup and administrative things that are brought before you from staff, such as certain lists of plan documents that are tied into the overall comprehensive plan. So we have zoning decisions, commissioner proposals, and staff proposals. We'll take each category and I'll read each individual item from that category into the record. If anyone from the public wants to speak to that particular item, the chairman will ask. And if there is anyone, that item will get pulled to the side. If a commissioner wants to discuss a particular item, that item will get pulled to the side. After I finish reading through all the items in a particular category, those items which weren't pulled can be voted on as one block. Then we'll go back and conduct individual hearings for each item that was pulled. So there'll be individual hearings and individual votes for each item that's pulled. Those that aren't pulled, again, are voted on as one particular block, and we'll do that for each of the three categories. That, in essence, is how we'll conduct the hearing today, and if there are no questions, I'll begin.
Okay, I just want to, for those who are the first time making comments here, I just want to reassure you, we'll walk you through this process. If you're here to speak about a particular zoning, I guarantee you, you'll get your time to come up here and address your concerns to the board. So just be patient with this, and you will not leave here. If you came here to talk today, you will leave here knowing that you've had a chance to talk. So just want you to be comfortable with that. So with that, Jason, we're ready for the zoning decisions.
One more thing I'd like to add before I start. The Planning Commission heard these items on last Tuesday, January 8th, and they have made recommendations for each item. So that will be part of what's brought before you all as a body today. So with that, we'll start with the zoning decisions. Our first item is ZD1, which was based on case Z60 of 2017. The proposed change on the future land use plan is from industrial compatible to industrial. The site is located in Commission District 3 on the northeast side of Dixie Drive and on the southwest side of Homer Corn Road. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this item.
Okay, one administrator, did I declare this public hearing open?
You did.
Okay, you'll be as old as me someday, Jason. Just appreciate it a little bit. Okay, so is there anyone here that would like to comment regarding zoning decision 1? Is there anyone from the board that would like to comment on zoning decision 1? Okay.
Okay. Our next item is ZD2. It's based on case Z53 of 2017. The proposed change is from public institutional to community activity center. The site is located in Commission District 3 on the east side of Sandy Plains Road, south of Shallowford Road, and at the northern terminus of Hunter's Lodge Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Is there anyone here that would like to comment on the zoning decision 2 from the audience? Yes.
Mike, do you have a larger or small, I guess a smaller scale map that shows better where that is?
Is there a way you can zoom in on where this is on the map?
It's the old map.
How's that one? Does that work?
That's a little bit better, so, okay,
Well, we'll give you a chance to look at it.
yeah.
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Burrow.
It's the Mountain View School. That's now commercial.
Yeah, okay, great.
All right.
The Hunter's Lodge Road didn't meet anything.
Yeah, that's the subdivision behind that.
No, well, I'm glad you said something. That's great. So, but we have the technology to do this. You can work for another day. Yes. So, yeah, but we'll use those maps, okay? Okay, great, super. You bet. No, I'm glad you said something. So, does anyone from the board have a comment on zoning decision 2? Seeing none, we'll accept that.
Okay. ZD3 is based on case Z67 of 2017. The proposed change is from Neighborhood Activity Center to Community Activity Center. Site is located in Commission District 3 on the south side of Shiloh Road, east of Fry Road. The Planning Commission recommends denial.
Okay, is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment on zoning decision 3? Is there anyone from the board like to comment on zoning decision 3? Okay, seeing none, we'll accept that.
ZD4,
Oops.
We're accepting denial
Yes. Right.
to leave it now. Correct. That's
yes.
what
ZD4 is based on case Z34 of 2017. The proposed change is from low-density residential to medium-density residential. The site is located in Commission District 4 at the northern terminus of Burris Lane, at the northwest terminus of Milton Place, the northern terminus of Lakeview Drive, the eastern end of Mark Lee Drive, and northeast of Veterans Memorial Highway. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on zone decision 4? Regard to recommended approval. I'll make that clear too. Anyone from the board like to comment on zone decision 4? Okay, we'll accept that.
ZD5 is based on case Z76 of 2017. The proposed change is from Neighborhood Activity Center to Community Activity Center. The site is located in Commission District 4 at the southwest corner of Austell Road and Evergreen Drive. The Planning Commission recommends denial.
Is there anyone from the public that'd like to comment on the recommendation for denial for zoning decision 5? Anyone from the board like to comment on that? Okay, we'll accept that.
ZD6 is based on case Z79 of 2017. The proposed change is from Neighborhood Activity Center to low-density residential. The site is located in Commission District 3 on the southeast side of Old Mountain Park Road, east of Alabama Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Is there anyone from the public that'd like to comment on the recommendation for approval for zoning decision 6? Anyone from the board like to comment on zoning decision 6? Seeing none, we'll accept that.
ZD7 is based on case Z44 of 2017. The proposed change is from low-density residential and medium-density residential to medium-density residential in its entirety. The site is located in Commission District 4 at the southwest intersection of Floyd Road and Glore Road and at the northern terminus of Green Valley Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment on the recommendation for approval for zoning decision 7? Would anyone from the board like to comment on that? Seeing none, we'll accept it.
ZD8 is based on case Z64 of 2017. The proposed change is from medium-density residential and community activity center to community activity center in its entirety. Site's located in Commission District 2 on the east side of Oakdale Road, the north side of West Village Crossing, on the west side of Pine Street, on the southwesterly side of Atlanta Road, and on the north and south sides of West Village Way. The Planning Commission recommends denial.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment on the recommendation for denial for zoning decision 8? I'm sorry?
Mary Rose, do you agree with the denial?
That's why I was asking if there was a
Right.
comment. So by raising your hand, that means you approve. I saw a hand in the back. I just wasn't sure if you want to make a comment or, because if you are, then we're going to pull it for make it a regular agenda
And
discussion.
I'm in agreement with the denial, so if that's what you want, then you don't need to come up and say that.
Okay, all right. So we're good. Everybody's happy. Okay, so is anyone for the,
I hope it's
sure.
the PI to the left of this. Okay. That's library, okay.
Yes.
Okay, the one in the blue is the library, in case you have any questions.
And the MDR piece up here to the left is is that vacant? Just open land? Or is it part of this PDC up here?
Right now, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
It's,
But is all that parcel owned by one person? Is it all one?
yes, I believe it is all owned by one. I think it's all owned by the folks that own West Village.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, so we'll accept ZD8.
ZD9 is based on case Z80 of 2017. The proposed change is from Neighborhood Activity Center to medium-density residential. The site is located in Commission District 4 on the east side of Gordon Road, north of Old Alabama Road. The Planning Commission recommends denial.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on the recommendation for denial for zoning decision 9? Anyone from the board like to comment on that? Okay, we'll accept that.
ZD 10 is based on case Z70 of 2017. The proposed change is from high-density residential to medium-density residential. The site is located in District 4 on the southwest corner of Smyrna Powder Springs Road and Vineyard Way. Planning Commission recommends denial.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on the recommendation for denial for zoning decision 10? Anybody from the board like to comment? Seeing none, we'll accept that.
ZD 11 is based on case Z73 of 2017. The proposed change is from Community Activity Center to medium-density residential. The site is located in Commission District 3 on the southwest side of Wooten Lake Road and on the east side of Wade Green Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on the recommendation of approval for zoning decision 11? Is there anyone from the board like to comment on zoning decision 11? Seeing none, we'll accept that.
ZD 12 is based on case Z12 of 2017. The proposed change is from high-density residential, community activity center, and public institutional to regional activity center with subcategory of high-density residential. Site's located in Commission District 2 on the northwest side of Terrell Mill Road and on the west side of Powers Ferry Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Okay, now there was a new map.
Yes, there was.
Is this the new map?
That is the correct boundaries of that particular item,
Okay.
yes.
Let's pull this. I would like to talk more about it.
Okay.
Okay.
But would anybody else from the public like to also comment on zone decision 11, 12? Okay, so Commissioner Out wants to pull it, we'll put it on the regular. Okay.
ZD 13 is based on case Z83 of 2017. The proposed change is from low-density residential to medium-density residential. The site is located in Commission District 3 on the southwest side of Hawkins Store Road, west of Canton Road. The Planning Commission recommends denial.
Is there anyone from the public like to comment on the recommendation of denial for zoning decision 13? Would anybody from the board like to comment on it? Seeing none, we'll accept that.
ZD 14 is based on case Z2 of 2018. The proposed change is from Neighborhood Activity Center to Industrial Compatible. Site is located in Commission District 4 on the northeast corner of Oak Ridge Road and Oak Ridge Parkway. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Would anyone from the public like to comment on the recommendation of approval for zoning decision 14? Seeing none, would anybody from the board like to comment on zoning decision 14? We'll accept that.
ZD 15 is based on case Z9 of 2018. The proposed change is from Neighborhood Activity Center to Community Activity Center. The site is located in Commission District 3 on the northwest side of Sandy Plains Road, north of Ebenezer Road. The Planning Commission recommends denial.
Would anyone from the public like to comment on the recommendation of denial for zoning decision 15? Would anyone from the board like to comment on that? Seeing none, we'll accept it.
ZD 16 is based on case Z12 2018. The proposed change is from low-density residential to medium-density residential. The site is located in Commission District 3 on the northwest side of Charlotteford Road, north of Shallow Ridge Road. Planning Commission recommends denial.
Would anyone from the public like to comment on the recommendation of denial for zoning decision 16? Would anyone from the board like to comment? Seeing none, we'll accept it.
ZD 17 is based on case Z5 of 2018. The proposed change is from Community Activity Center to High Density Residential. The site is located in Commission District 2 on the southwest corner of Old Town Parkway and Old Town Lane. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Would anyone from the public like to comment on the recommendation of approval for zone decision 17? And I see one hand, so we'll pull that and put that on regular.
ZD 18 is based on case Z23 of 2018. The proposed change is from high density residential to medium density residential. The site is located in Commission District 3 on the west side of Carnes Drive and on the east side of Lakewood Road. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Would anyone from the public like to comment on the recommendation of approval for zoning decision 18? Anyone from the board like to comment? Seeing none, we'll accept it.
ZD 19 is based on case Z24 of 2018. The proposed change is from Regional Activity Center with a subcategory of retail services to Regional Activity Center with a subcategory of high-density residential. The site is located in Commission District 2 on the northwest side of Acres Mill Road, on the north side of Galleria Lane, on the south side of Galleria Parkway. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Would anyone from the public like to comment on the recommendation of approval for zoning decision 19? Would anyone from the board like to comment? I want to make sure we're good here on the board. We're good? Okay. We'll accept that.
ZD 20 is based on case Z25 of 2018. The proposed change is from low-density residential to medium-density residential. The site is located in Commission District 2 on the north side of Lee Road, east of Pine Ridge Road. The Planning Commission recommends denial.
Would anyone from the public like to comment on the recommendation of denial for zoning decision 20? Would anyone on the board like to comment? Seeing none, we'll accept that.
Excuse me, ZD 21, excuse me, is based on case Z50 of 2018. Proposed change is from industrial compatible to industrial. The site is located in Commission District 2 on the south side of South Cobb Industrial Boulevard, west of Martin Court. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Would anyone from the public like to comment on the recommendation of approval for zoning decision 21? Seeing none, anybody from the board like to comment? We'll accept it then.
Okay. The final zoning decision item is ZD 22. It's based on case Z8 of 2018. The proposed change is from Neighborhood Activity Center to medium density residential. The site is located in Commission District 1 on the east side of John Ward Road, west of Powder Springs Road. And the Planning Commission recommends approval.
Would anybody from the public like to comment on the recommendation of approval for zoning decision 22? Would anybody from the board like to comment on that? Seeing none, we'll accept that.
Chairman,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would like to pull ZD 14.
You'd like to pull ZD 14, put it on the regular, okay? So so just to make sure, we're gonna be ZD 12, ZD 14, and ZD 17 will be on regular. Do I have that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me go ahead and make a motion. Get the right word. I move that we approve ZD 1, ZD 2, ZD 3, ZD 4, ZD 5, ZD 6, ZD 7, ZD 8, ZD 9, ZD 10, ZD 11, ZD 13, ZD 15, ZD 16, ZD 18, ZD 19, ZD 20, ZD 21, and ZD 22. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I call the question. It passes 5-0. Okay, so let's open up, expand the hearing to start with ZD 12, which I believe is Commissioner Ott, correct? Yes, you had the recommendations?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is discuss the ZD 12 and CP 2 at the same time,
Is that okay with the board?
because they're both related.
Okay.
And with the stuff that I want to show about the Power Spray Master Plan, it applies to both of them. And so it might be better to just discuss it all at the same time.
Okay, so we're gonna do ZD 12 and CP
Yeah, so when we get to CP 2,
2-1?
yeah, do them at the same
Oh,
time.
okay, so do you
And then,
wanna
I mean, I'll
wait?
make separate motions,
Okay.
but yeah, so if we could, let's wait
Okay,
and do all that at the
all
same
right,
time.
that's good. So we'll do the ZD 12 once we get into the CP discussion. All right, Commissioner Cupid.
With respect to ZD 14, the recommendation is to move to industrial compatible property. As you can see, its neighboring parcel is also neighborhood activity center. The text amendment acknowledges that there are a mix of uses along Oak Ridge Road, which include retail, office, and also residential uses. And part of having the neighborhood activity use along the roadway, it helps to not have a stark contrast with the residential property that's there. And as you drive further along Oak Ridge Parkway, which is more industrial, those uses are pushed to the back. So while the text amendment acknowledges the variation in uses and tries to soften the industrial compatible, I'd much rather make an exception and keep it NAC with the text amendment to say that industrial compatible uses may be appropriate.
Okay,
So,
so go ahead and make a motion and we'll.
yes. I move that we keep the future land use map as it is with the text amendment provided with the following changes. Due to the mix of uses located along Oak Ridge at the Douglas County line, industrial compatible uses may be appropriate. This is in addition to the retail and office and residential uses that currently exist in the surrounding area.
So we're just gonna take the text right out of the book here. Put that in
Yes,
there,
and just
in
make
your
that
note.
minor.
Okay, do we have a second?
minor change.
We have a second from Commissioner Gambrell. Any discussion? None? Call the question. Passes 5-0. Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And now we're gonna do ZD 17. And I believe, Ms. Flam, you have 3 minutes? And could we turn the microphone up for her? She's having some issues here. She's in the new world of grandchildren who pass gifts on to you that we rather not have. But we're glad you're here today, Ms. Jill. Appropriate introduction, yes. You didn't need to put an exclamation point on my comments, but I appreciate that.
Sorry, Commissioners, please don't make me laugh. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jill Flam, and I'm presenting East Cobb Civic Association's comments on the comprehensive plan. ECCA has concerns with the proposed comp plan amendments at ZD 17 brought about by case Z5 2018 in District 2. There are subdivisions along Old Town Parkway and adjacent to that area that are designated high-density residential that were not built out to the maximum that their zoning code allows. The Hamptons at Old Town is zoned FST 6, but it is built at 4.5 units per acre, which is medium-density residential. Old Town Colony is zoned FST 6, but is built at 5.6 units per acre, just over the limit for MDR. And Rosa Oak subdivision, located behind the Old Town Athletic Club, is built at 4 units per acre, medium density residential. Bottom line, the comprehensive land use plan does not reflect what was actually built. Old Town Parkway is the only way in and out for the Hamptons and Old Town subdivisions and the new townhomes as well. as Northside Hospital Doctor's Office and many other small office buildings, and the athletic club. No other street access is available for that area. This is a two-lane road that cannot be widened that ends in a traffic circle. If the athletic club or any of the smaller office buildings tried to convert to a zoning in the HDR category, it would be a traffic nightmare for the small two-lane road that ends in the traffic circle. And in reality, one of the office buildings has a sign up in front of it that shows it needs to be fully leased. So this is indeed a possibility. ZD 17 was not meant to set a precedent for this area. It was a downzoning from the existing PSC. It is a unique situation with a subdivision that is surrounded by CAC, and it also is not built out to the maximum RM12 that the zoning code allows. We would recommend that this amendment be held for further study of the area and the comprehensive plan be brought into compliance with what actually exists. Perhaps the existing Hamptons, Old Town, and Rose Oak subdivisions should be changed to reflect what is actually built, which is medium-density residential. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public like to comment on ZD 17? And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Commissioner Ott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jill and I spoke before the meeting started, and we both agree that the rest of this area does need to come in as a commissioner proposal. But when I looked at this, we do have the RA4 high-density residential over to the east. And yes, the FST6 is not built out at HDR. What I envision here is a transition from Lower Roswell Road, which is commercial, to residential, and high-density residential right up against the CAC would make sense, then transitioning down to medium-density residential, like Jill said, ultimately to the low-density residential, which is in the back. Obviously, those are not under the purview of a ZD. So what I would like staff to do is we'll meet and talk about looking at basically Old Town Athletic Club, the density in the RA4 to the east, then the FST6 like Jill talked about, the OS right there, and the PSC is actually, I thought we changed that with the north side.
Say that again, I couldn't hear that last
The
one.
north side health park is there. I thought we changed that PSC last year.
No.
I don't remember it.
I don't either. All right, so basically what I'd like to do is come in with basically everything from the O&I and the northwest corner up there. Kind of coming across that straight line to the PRC, you know, down, then to the east, down, and then along Lower Roswell. And we'll come in with a comprehensive CP. But for right now, I don't really want to hold this because I don't want commercial in there. Because right now it's under a commercial category, it's under a CAC, which is one of the reasons I want to change it to HDR. Now, Jill, we may ultimately, when we look at the entire area, change it again. But for right now, I want to make sure that anybody coming in there knows that we are moving that in a different direction. And my concern is leaving it as a CAC, especially with empty office buildings, doesn't let people know that we're moving forward. So what I'm going to do is I'll make a motion to approve ZD 17 to HDR, add a text amendment that this is the beginning of change to residential in the area, and that the board will be coming forward with future land use changes to reflect what's currently there and what direction the board would like to go.
Second and discussion.
Sure.
So I'm okay with doing that now, but for the rest of it, because I've got a similar one coming up that I'd like to look at the whole area. So would that be done this year or next year comp plan amendments? Because we'd have to have the public
The reality
hearings
is we
all
could do
over
whatever
again.
I mean, if if I'm right, we could do, I mean, Commissioner Burrow and I,
Jason,
couldn't we do it this year? If we say
I'm
we want to.
asking. Jason,
Our custom is to do them once a year, but in the past, we have done mid-year comprehensive plan amendments, so it is possible to do it here in 2019.
So we would have to do that though in conjunction with a zoning day?
Yes. Well,
Okay, because, we're running out of days to do these kind of things.
I stand corrected. Actually, those are actually done in conjunction with regular business because we did one in 2016, my first year back, and it was at a regular business meeting.
At a regular board meeting.
Yes.
Because Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, I did want to
Chief
mention, provided with proper notification per the board's standard
Okay, all right.
policy, which would be a public notice sign being placed upon the property and an advertisement in the MDJs.
Okay.
so it would be one public hearing at at one of our regular meetings?
Yes, ma'am. One is,
30-day notice
there's
or
only
whatever.
one required public hearing to amend your comp plan. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
So, all right, so
can we set it?
with that in mind,
Okay.
that Commissioner Burrow's gonna ask for the same thing on one of hers, how much time do you think staff needs to look at this one and the one Commissioner Burrow wants to look at? 3 months, 4 months?
I'd say 2 to 3 months.
Okay, so then, in my motion, I'll also say that, staff will bring back in 3 months a comprehensive update to this area, for, proposed future land use map changes.
Yes, sir.
You okay with that? So,
Mhm.
yeah,
And
okay.
how many?
3 months.
I guess my question is, what would be the harm in making this an MDR? I mean, I was following you perfectly in your explanation.
Well, because all the rest of these are HDR right now, and I don't know what the density is. I know, I'm believing Jill when she says the FSD 6, but I don't know about the RA4. I don't know what density that's at. That's HDR right now.
She knows.
Yeah, but I was talking.
Is it in your note?
What I was focusing on was the transitioning you were trying to get in there, okay? So, and also goes to, I still remember that young lady who came up here and gave a very detailed reason as to why she opposed the zoning. It was really well argued, her concerns about the neighborhood, so ultimately we supported the zoning that came in, but
Well, here's part of the problem too, is Old Town Athletic Club, the CRC, right to the east.
right,
When this comes in, the board's going to be taking commercial property and changing it to residential, it's gonna decrease the value of the property. All right, and the future land use map. I mean, we're not changing the actual zoning, but it is going to change what direction the board wants to go, which ultimately has an impact on the value. And so, trying to respect property owner rights in the fact that they have commercial property that is a viable commercial business, to go all the way down to MDR, I think is a little bit too much. And so it makes it, to me, with transitions, it makes sense to go from a CAC down to high-density residential, to medium-density residential, to low-density residential. I would feel uncomfortable taking value away from Old Town Athletic Club. And so the problem with putting MDR, you have an office park, basically, with the Northside Hospital.
right,
And their plan that's approved actually has a second building where that hand is.
right.
So medium-density residential right there. You also have a development that's almost 11 units to the acre. So that's why I think that HDR makes more sense. Like I said, though, it may be that when staff comes back with looking at the whole area, that MDR makes sense. I don't think it's a good transition right now.
Well, then I guess the question, I get your concern about if we don't do something now, that has implications in the future, but if we table this for 3 months while we do the study, I don't think business is gonna come in that fast to put something in there. That allows us to more reasonably address the whole plan and address all the concerns.
Okay, well, now you've thrown a different idea out. You just said meet MDR, and now you want to table it. So which are you suggesting?
All of it.
I mean,
here's what I'm
I
suggesting.
can't support MDR.
Okay, I get that part, all right. What I'm saying here is that clearly there's issues here that Commissioner Ott has and that will impact on Commissioner Burrow, all right? So this is something we have to get right. but you're giving the staff 3 months to take a look at this. I would be willing to support 3 months, because I don't think, what your main concern was if we put the wrong zoning.
No, I wasn't concerned about the wrong zoning there. I'd want, my concern is, like Jill has, is that we have an empty office building over there,
Right.
okay? I don't want those things to go in the wrong direction.
I hear you, and that's what I'm saying, but is it gonna go the wrong direction in 3 months? I don't think so. I think we can wait the 3 months and address your concerns and bring it back to a regular meeting and then vote on it, and that'll take care of everybody's concerns, because we're gonna have to do this twice. If we do this now, and then we're gonna come back and do it again. Why do it twice when we can wait 3 months and do it all? That's all I'm saying. And that way, all your concerns will be addressed, and I would probably support it at that time. Commissioner Burrow.
This is the result of a zoning
Correct.
Yes,
this year, or last year.
this year.
So all these other things, you're just looking at as your prerogative as a commissioner to change. The HDR, even though they're not HDR units per acre allowed, were they already HDR when the FSTs came in and the RA4s? Or?
Some of these, I mean, the fact that it's FST 6 leads me to believe that it was done way back when, and
Right.
the HDR was probably put in place when zoning was put in place in the county back in the early 70s. And so it's not uncommon in District 2 to come across areas like this where what was built and what it's called do not match.
Right. So you need to revisit the whole
Right.
area, and that's
Right.
what you're asking staff to do.
Right.
So why couldn't you put a hold on any development in this area until staff comes back in 3 months?
I don't know if I'm legal to do that.
Kenny,
I don't think, that's a whole different agenda. I don't,
like a moratorium?
I wouldn't, I mean,
can't go
No.
there.
the owner has it's a property rights issue. The owner
Sure,
has the right,
absolutely.
yeah, so they could apply for it. Now, of course, the board has discretion on how they would vote, but I don't think you can stop somebody from making an application.
And here's the other issue, Mr. Chairman. As word gets out, because, well, he was here, John Gargis was here. As word gets out to property owners, especially the ones that have the vacant office building, that the board is going to be looking at this entire area and possibly changing the land use designations, possibly in a way that diminishes their value. All they have to do is file a zoning application prior to that 3-month window, and they are under this old map with no indication from the board that we want to go in a different direction. And so what happens is if they file a zoning application prior to the board making any changes in 3 months, we have to consider their zoning, and staff has to consider it under the existing future land use map, correct?
Commissioner Gamble.
So Commissioner, do you feel that the text amendment want to put forth with this amendment would help protect that if a rezoning application was filed?
Well, I mean, it does, if the rezoning application is filed, it still has to be under the map, but there will be now further direction or clarification to the board that would have been approved, so that now staff looking at it can say, well, yes, it's whatever it is right now, but, oh, by the way, there's also a text amendment recently approved by the board giving further direction to staff that is outside of just what the land use map is.
Thank you.
Because it would not surprise me at all to see possibly some zoning applications. Did I get that right?
Yes.
But it's already zoned RM12. There's not gonna be something for
No,
that.
the other, we
CRC?
just marked off a whole area that we're staff's bringing back in 3 months. Anybody that owns
Okay.
property in that area that was thinking about redeveloping it, selling it, or rezoning it, could file an application before that 3-month window, and they're under this map, not one that the board might approve in 3 months. So I'm gonna just
Okay,
leave my
so
motion the way it
we have
is.
a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-1 with the chairman in opposition. All right, so that takes care of ZD 17. So now we're on to the commission proposals, correct?
Yes, sir. Okay. Our first item is CP 2-1. Proposed change is from Community Activity Center, High Density Residential, and Parks, Recreation, Conservation to Regional Activity Center with subcategories of high-density residential, retail services, and open space recreation. The site is located in Commission District 2 on the west side of Powers Ferry Road, south of Delk Road, and the north and south sides of Terrell Mill Road. And as previously mentioned, this is the item that is complementary to ZD 12.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask if there's anyone from the public that'd like to comment on on CP 2-1, and you can also bring in the comments ZD 12 if you choose to, since they're going to be shared together.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to also add for the record that the Planning Commission's recommendation on this item was approval.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And again, for anyone that'd like to comment on the recommendation for approval, so CP 2-1, and if you do want to comment, you're also allowed, more than free to discuss ZD 12. Seeing none, all right, ma'am?
I'm sorry, I don't know what a CP2 is, and I'm sorry to be ignorant.
Oh, that's all right. All right, so go ahead and do CP2, right? CP 2-1. So go ahead and let's,
Well, I think your question is, ZD is a zoning decision, a CP is a commissioner proposal. So this is not based on a zoning decision made in the previous year. It's made, I made a suggestion to make the change. So that's what a CP is.
Oh, I thought your question was about the specific CP. Okay, that's Commissioner. So Commissioner Rod is proposing this change. It's coming from the Commissioner. All the other ones were on the basis of actions we took last year with regard to zoning decisions. And so they were, as a consequence of those zoning decisions, it drove the action that we wanted to do, to relook at the zoning designations on the map. So that's what we've been doing for the last, 45 minutes now, just on zoning decisions. The next period of time, we'll only be discussing proposals made by one of the commissioners up here. And again, if you have any questions about the map or about the proposal, then you have 3 minutes. And you're welcome to make any comments that you choose. Okay, so would you like to comment on Commission Proposal 2-1?
I don't know enough about it to ask.
Okay, all right.
So she
All
needs
right,
help.
so I'll have Jason explain to you what that proposal
Well,
is.
and I'm going to go through a
right.
pretty lengthy explanation
All
about
right.
that's why I wanted to have them together.
Sure, okay. Let me give him a couple minutes to talk to this young lady.
So if we could, Mr. Chairman, maybe after I go through what I'm going to show, like from different documents and things, she may have a question.
All right, let's do this. Let's do the other CPs, all right, first, and then we'll come back to this one. All right.
Sounds good.
Because I want to make sure that she understands what the proposal is. So why don't you do CP 3-1
Okay.
and subsequent ones.
CP 3-1 is in Commission District 3. The proposed change is from medium density residential to low density residential. The site is located on the east side of Piedmont Road, south of the intersection with Cajun Drive. The Planning Commission offered no recommendation on this item, and the result of that, or that was the result of what was initially a tied vote between the 4 planning commissioners who were in attendance at the hearing. And with the tied vote, the result is to forward an item of non-recommendation.
Okay, so would it be appropriate for me to ask the commissioner first to make a recommendation? So if there's any public comment on that, they know where she's going?
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I just,
Although actually, excuse me, since there's no recommendation and the commissioner, let's see, 3, Commissioner Burrell is recommending that it be LDR, that's what would be before the board.
right, that's what I want the
Yeah.
public to know about. That's
Yes.
not on the sheet right now, so. So I just want them, that way, if someone from the public want to comment on her recommendation, then we'd have the full explanation, the discussion about the issue.
Sure.
Okay, so with that,
Well, before you come to me, you need to ask if there's anyone for the public hearing, because there is.
this is a public hearing, it's still open.
But I mean, to ask them if they want to speak before I explain my
Well,
decision, my
what-
recommendation.
As I understood the question from the chairman, he wanted to make sure that the public knew that the proposed change was from MDR to LDR, so that the public knew what they were discussing.
Right. because you're making that proposal from MDR to LDR to MDR.
Right.
And I just want the public to hear it from you that that's your recommendation, so that if they have any comments about that.
Okay.
I know it's a little different, but
Well, we usually have the public hearing before
we do, but they
Come
don't
to
know, they don't know
us.
what to comment on because they haven't heard your comments.
Well, but,
it's in the
I mean,
book.
she doesn't have to, I mean,
They don't have
the
the book.
change is to LDR. So if somebody
Okay.
has opposition to
All right, here's what's gonna happen, all right? The commissioner's gonna propose that it be changed from LDR to MDR. So does anyone?
vice
does any-
versa.
MDR to LDR, I'm sorry, all right. Does anyone in the public
Messing things up.
have a comment on the recommendation?
Where's
All right, and
Billy?
we do, so come on up, sir. We have a couple, actually, so come up and let us know who you are and where you live, and you have 3 minutes. I knew I'd flush you out eventually.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chairman. For the record, my name is Richard Duncan. I am in opposition of oppose this land use change. I purchased this piece of property back in 2017, and because it was in medium density, I did bring it in application last month for zoning. It was denied for an 8-lot subdivision, which was 2.8 units per acre, which is just over the medium, barely over the low-density residential. As you can see on the land use map, it is predominantly everything around it up through there is medium density. And just as the board looked at it, planning board looked at it last week, it's being singled out. This piece of property is being singled out. I mean, if it's going to be changed, it all needs to be changed because I paid even the application fees for medium density is more expensive, and it leaves those other people to come in and zone their places, and they're going to have to pay the higher cost for applications. And I actually even own some other property in that area also. And I do oppose this being changed to low density because, like I said, I purchased this price and paid the medium density pricing for it, and I'm asking for your denial on this. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, sir. And I believe we had one more individual. Please, Mr. Walsh.
I guess I'm supposed to come up here. I'm Norm Fagg, and I live in District 3. And my in-laws have property in the Hidden Hills subdivision. And that piece of property right there is right at the entrance to Hidden Hills, which is all low-density residential, and I think it should remain so. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, sir.
Well, Mr. Fagg,
Yes, Joanne.
the property in question is currently MDR. I'm proposing to take it down to LDR.
Which I approve of.
Okay.
But that's
You
what I
said to
support. I'm
remain what
saying
it
I
is.
support your recommendation.
Okay, anyone else from the public that would like to comment on CP 3-1? All right, now I'll turn this over to Commissioner Burrow.
First of all, there was an application previously last year, I believe in May, for this specific property here, the 3.1 acres for RA5, and it was withdrawn. And from that is where I talked to staff and was requesting that it go to LDR. Then we did hear the case in November last, or December, zoning for RM12, and that was denied, or R12, and that was denied. So because this is surrounded by, and I know we're not doing zoning here, but R15 and R20 and LDR to the south, even the MDR around it is R15 and R20. So I would like to recommend that, or make a motion that we reduce this from MDR to LDR and ask staff to look at bringing back as another CP amendment the MDR on this side of Piedmont Road from Retreat Drive, up to the PI. There's not a road, but those two parcels next to this.
Okay, we have a second? Second. Have a second? Any further discussion? Commissioner Cupid?
Yes, I just have some questions because looking at this, it does look like this is an anomaly for all the parcels that are fronting. I don't know what this road is here,
Piedmont Road.
Piedmont Road. So is it my understanding you're gonna ask for all of these parcels fronting Piedmont Road to be considered as LDR in the future?
To Retreat Drive, up to the PI,
And
surrounding this particular parcel to be LDR instead of MDR. Because they're surrounded by residential. It doesn't need to be medium density or high density
R15
residential.
falls under,
LDR.
R15 falls under MDR though, and it's.
And they're already zoned and occupied, but for backing up to this subdivision to the south, Hidden Hills, that's why I'm
That's all
asking that it go
LDR.
from Retreat Drive to the PI corner.
Okay, so it goes into a subdivision that's all LDR,
Correct.
okay? And then, in reference to the speaker who owns property here, I mean, the land use map is not, is a plan or a guide. It doesn't change the underlying zoning. So is it currently zoned for medium density residential for that category?
It's currently R20.
Oh, it's current.
No, but Commissioner Cupid,
But
this kind of goes to what we were talking about
Okay.
before. Because when you see signs that says land for sale, future commercial, I think that's what the speaker is kind of referring to.
So, so there's a reliance on the plan that the speaker had, not necessarily the underlying zoning, which is still, I mean, we would not encourage that because it's the plan, it's not necessarily the underlying zoning.
Right.
The current zoning of this CP31 parcel is R20.
Is our, which is low density.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah,
I support Commissioner Burrell because, number one, you have the entrance to a subdivision. And if you were to allow it to go to medium density residential, in a lot of ways, that diminishes the value of the homes behind it because anyone driving along Piedmont is going to see a much more intense neighborhood from Piedmont than really exists back in the rest of the neighborhood. So I think I support her denying this or going to LDR and then bringing the rest of it in.
yes, I would agree, but my support, I can see with it leading into a subdivision with making it consistent, but I strongly support you changing the designation for the other parcels, so it doesn't have the appearance of it being
Right.
singled out.
Thank you.
So you got that note also about coming back, get Jason?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Okay. Any
in
further-
3 months with his,
Yes.
okay.
Commissioner Gamble?
I have
Sure.
a question for
Yeah,
you,
sure.
Commissioner Burrell. So why wouldn't you take the LDR all the way down to, is it Cottonwood? They blew it back out. Because you're stopping at Retreat Drive, but then it looks like you've got large parcel R15. I'm sorry, I don't know what direction this would be. But why wouldn't you take it all the way over further to the left on our screen? If you're gonna be changing to LDR.
Yeah, Cottonwood Drive, because that's all MDR too, right?
Right, because the Cajun Drive, that looks like it's all LDR through there. You've got R15, which could be considered LDR as well. And then you've got the parcel that bumps up into the R20. So why wouldn't you take the LDR the rest of the way? And then also, across the road.
The RA4 on this end is getting into Barrett Parkway, Bells Ferry, where it is commercial.
Okay.
I mean, you're next to an NAC and GC, and then you got RSL down there. I mean, these are all older developments that have been there, Piedmont Hills. And And I don't know what the density is of this R15 at Retreat. Mandy,
The
do
lots
you-
look smaller than the ones in Hidden Hills.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, that may fit MDR, I don't know, because it's already developed. I don't know what well, just, how about bringing back the whole area and then we can discuss it and look at it?
Bring back all of
I-
So, so do you want to jump across the road
I
too?
really don't want to do that, but.
I was gonna say that next.
I'm gonna save you. It's just, bring back the whole area,
Cottonwood,
okay?
that's what she was saying.
Because it's a matter of discussion. There's no, it won't matter until we bring it back to the board for a vote. And she can decide, but in discussions with you and the other board members, how big an area she wants. But I think if you look at
yeah.
the whole area, that saves you a lot
Yeah.
of time,
Right.
okay?
Just do that over to Cottonwood.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you
And-
agree with that as a second?
And so how about jumping across the road though, too, though? That's MDR over there,
No,
right?
that's another whole area. That's already built. It's R20. He didn't have to come through zoning. He built it as it was.
All right, so we're gonna take half the loaf right now, which is better than no loaf.
Well,
But it may
the
come back
concern
later.
is the frontage on Piedmont.
I
Yes.
get you, I
Yeah,
hear you.
but we-
All right.
Not way up north and way down south.
We can sit down and discuss, we can sit down and discuss, the specific parameters of what you want to
Exactly.
change. It
That's
doesn't
my whole
necessarily have
point.
to be a part of your motion today.
That's right. Because you can always bring that back later for another CP at another board meeting in 3 months, if you want to do that. Since we're gonna have obviously one additional recommendation in 3 months, we might have a second one
Yeah.
and make that meeting worth one coming to.
And we may have another one
Yes,
down the road.
exactly. 'Cause
Well,
I
there you
already-
are.
I
That's right.
I
I
already
forgot.
had one from last year that
Okay.
didn't make this, which
Yeah.
is to
All
be
right.
considered during a year. So we
Okay,
have-
so we have a motion to approve this to LDR, this parcel, and for the staff to come back in 3 months with an overview of the area and a CP amendment.
Okay, we have a second to the change, so any further discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, CP4 -1.
Yes, sir. CP 4-1 is a proposed change from Community Activity Center to Neighborhood Activity Center. Consists of multiple parcels located on the northwest side of Powder Springs Road, south of the intersection with Pine Grove Road, and north of the Powder Springs city limits. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Okay, is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment on the recommendation for approval for CP 4-1? Anybody from the board like to comment on that? Okay. CP 4-, we'll accept that, okay? Accept that recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll vote on them separate. It's a lot simpler that way. So I'll let Commissioner Cupid make that motion.
The wrong one? I move that we support CP 4-1.
We have a second? We have a second from Commissioner Gambrell. Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
CP 4-2 is a proposed change from Neighborhood Activity Center and Medium Density Residential to Neighborhood Activity Center in its entirety. Site is located on the north side of Veterans Memorial Highway, west of Buckner Road. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Okay, is anyone in the public who'd like to comment on the recommendation for approval for CP 4-2? Anybody from the board like to comment? Commissioner Ott?
Commissioner Cupid, I would recommend leaving it the way it is. I mean, it's got a pretty nice line indicating kind of parallel to Veterans Memorial, where you want to transition.
Yes, this is interesting because this could have actually been a ZD decision. And we've had at-length discussion about this particular parcel. You may not remember, but there's a retail property where the frontage was being based off of Buckner Road instead of Veterans Memorial because of this zoning, this split zoning. or future land use map. So to me, this kind of seems like a cleanup to match the actual development, because it's already going to have commercial property in both parcels. So it makes sense to support it, even though I can see exactly what you're saying. It just threw our analysis of this property off because of the way the zoning was. And I'm trying to remember without having the case in front of me, but I think we had robust discussion as a board that it made sense to zone the property as if the frontage was coming off a Veterans Memorial, even though on paper, technically, it didn't support that.
But I agree, but at the same time, you now have a knack further up Buckner Road, where, like you said, since it's a zoning, the part that you're proposing to change is not going to change because there's development there.
I agree, I hear that from a macro or I don't want to say philosophical. I understand it as an approach, but just practically, it makes sense to just have that be a neighborhood activity center, even though I do understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, so Commissioner Burrow, sure.
I mean, you're splitting a parcel in two. Part of it would still be MDR and part of it would be an ANAC. And if it's already developed for self-storage or commercial or retail, what's going in there? I think it's a cleanup and should be all
It
the
is a
same.
cleanup. I mean, it would be difficult if you had a personal parcel and half of it would have one
Right.
future land use
I agree.
designation and the other half had another
agree.
one.
Also, if there's concern that you don't want to allow NAC to continue to creep northward on the Buckner Road, we could try to remedy that through a
Yeah.
text amendment.
I was
Okay,
gonna say,
what kind
when
of text amendment would you recommend, Jason?
Not citing any specific language, but something along the lines of any required buffering and a policy position by the Board of Commissioners to stop the neighborhood activity center at that point.
Okay. I would lean on staff's recommendation because I know I've done text amendments before, but it's difficult for me to see how to do a text amendment for one parcel be controlling on the development of another parcel that's not included as part of the future land use map change.
Commissioner Gamble.
So when this was rezoned, was there a buffer along this
There-
edge right here?
There's a buffer, yes.
So what if we do the land use plan change, but then leave what the buffer would have been as the MDR to signalize the transition into the remainder of the MDR property?
So you would recommend a text amendment that provides that the buffer would be appropriate for MDR parcel behind, again, it's difficult for me to have a controlling measure on one parcel for another one, but because if it's a commercial property next to residential, it already has to have a buffer.
That's correct.
Right, but I think what Commissioner Gamble is saying is, instead of changing the entire part from MDR to a NAC, whatever the width of the buffer is, if it's 35 feet, since it's commercial residential, that not change on the future land use map. So in essence, there would be a strip of MDR.
No, I prefer you just clean the whole parcel. I mean, maybe a text amendment, yes. I don't,
You can make, talking about, so I'm still trying to figure out what you're saying, Commissioner
that
Gamble.
comes in
Just-
the
I didn't
zoning.
quite understand what you're doing. You want a
Yeah, I
buffer along the top part of this parcel?
There is a buffer
There
from the
is a-
zoning.
There is a buffer.
Right
but-
now.
But what we could do is, essentially call out this portion right here
Right.
and leave that MDR.
Leave
That way
leave
the
the strip
parcel-
as an MDR.
Right.
Well, we did that somewhere else in another
Yes, I've
zoning
seen it, but it
last
just
month,
In a
right?
zoning, but
I
not in
just-
a.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was
all right.
odd to me, but I feel that to protect the residential property north of it is just,
Well, what you could, just for future
Just-
reference, in one of your texts, you could put in there about the buffer.
or maybe we can, okay, I'm piggybacking off of what Commissioner Gamble is proposing to say a strong buffer is encouraged between this parcel and the northern residential parcel. But
Yeah.
again, that's already part of the zoning. We already are required to have.
I would just refer to the text amendment refer to the buffer in the text amendment,
Exactly.
to the
but
buffer and the
rezone
refer to the buffer.
make the whole parcel NAC.
There is no text amendment as it stands, though. That's my
No,
concern.
but you can add
You
it.
can add it, though. You can put it in there.
Okay, let me,
And the reason I'm saying that is it's for continuity, all right? Let's say, Lord forbid, something happens where, you're not here when they finally address this for when somebody buys the land or wants to do something with it. The idea of why we did what we did is that it brings your thoughts into on the record, by saying you want a buffer on that northern part of the tract.
but there already would be one according to current code. That's why.
Yeah, but just put a text that
Just
there is a
reemphasize.
buffer that protects
If
the,
there's a buffer in the zoning
Property,
conditions,
yes.
the zoning conditions are going to control the
Okay.
fact that buffer needs to be there.
Okay, all right. I get it. I'm just trying to
And,
reinforce.
and I don't recall that particular zoning, but if you remember that there is indeed a buffer along there, it would be, the zoning condition would control and require that
And I
buffer.
can't remember what it was. And I know this property had variances. I cannot remember if there was a variance on that buffer. So, but what I do know is just generally when you have a zoning for commercial next to a residential property, it speaks to having to have a certain type of buffer
Right.
based off of, the commercial
Right,
designation or
because of the
residential
budding uses.
designation. So,
Commissioner Ott?
I don't know if we're just strengthening it to be
There it is, okay.
redundant, but it's already existing.
The property that we did this on was the QT on Upper Russell Road at Old Kent,
Okay.
because it goes up against residential property. And what we did with the future land use map was just take the buffer, which I think it was 35 feet because it was commercial against residential,
typically.
and just said that was going to remain LDR. And so the only person that was
Okay.
impacted by that was the property owner in question, no one else.
I can,
And that's what Commissioner
That's
Gamble was
clear.
suggesting.
and maybe that's the same
Was
thing you
taking
were
the
saying,
35-foot
Commissioner Gambrell.
buffer strip,
Right.
leaving that as MDR.
Okay.
And so now you haven't impacted anyone but the person who already owns his property, but it's signaling to anyone coming in, looking
Okay.
at further development on Buckner Road, that you don't want the MDR or the NAC to go further north.
That's more clear to me now than even it was when we did it all over there on Roswell Road. So I can support that to add a text amendment
Right.
to include a 35-foot buffer of MDR to protect the residential nature of the northern parcel.
There you go. That works.
are we sure that's in the zoning?
Well, it's going to be in the text amendment,
It's
though.
not in the zoning, it's not stated like that. I know there is a buffer in the zoning.
Right.
I can't remember if there was a variance on the zoning, because I remember this property having variances.
We
But,
we can verify the width of the buffer
Yeah.
and ensure that that's the width specified to remain in the
MDR,
MDR
right.
category.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion on the
Well,
floor. It's
ex-
amended?
May I just clarify the motion?
Sure.
Are you saying, Commissioner Cupid, that you want to change this to NAC with a text amendment?
Right.
Or
Yes,
as
ma'am.
suggested by Commissioner Ott, that the buffer as required in the zoning to remain, to remain MDR and the balance of the property to switch to NAC?
It was to do the former, was to add the text amendment.
Okay, so the entirety will switch to NAC
Right.
with a text amendment that the.
Correct. Right.
Okay,
Thanks for clearing that up.
okay. So,
Thank you, guys, I appreciate
All
such
right,
an
so,
interest in
and do we
protecting
have-
the
and I think we had a
residents of
second.
District 4.
So I'll call the question. Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Gamble in opposition. All right, so let's go back now to CP 2-1. 2-1, joined was ZD 12.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is kind of walk the board through, because this all goes back to the Powers Ferry Master Plan. What you have to keep in mind, and the planning commission, because when I talked to my planning commissioner, he was not there during this time, and actually talked to Commissioner Gambrells too. So Cornelius, let's show the page 87 from the Powers Ferry Master Plan. Okay, so the Powers Ferry Master Plan is about 6 or 7 years old. And so the Powers Ferry Master Plan is what was developed with staff in the community. And this was the original thought process for this area. And as you can see, it has residential redevelopment, and then it has the village. I think there's a little bit cut off the top there, but the pink with the triangle, yeah, there we go, was village. And so you can all kind of see what was originally proposed as future character of the district. Okay, now if we go to page 94, this was what was kind of conceptually as an overlay district. The idea was, because exactly what we're trying to figure out today, the thought process was it would be very difficult to come up with future land use map changes and zoning categories that kind of got to where the previous diagram you saw wanted to be. Because it's just, as we've talked in the past, the county zoning code and future land use maps, well, those zoning codes are kind of not written for redevelopment, they're written for new development. So once again, you can see the village concept, that kind of carries through, and then you have the redevelopment area up there. And previously, the board has approved in that maroon area above Terrell Mill and below Delk along 75 as PVC. Okay, so that's retail, commercial, and residential. Okay, let's go to page 95, the next page. So now this was conceptually the village. ZD12 is the area north of Terrell Mill and west of Powers Ferry, which, just as a reminder, that was where the board approved a self-storage apartment complex, the Kroger Shopping Center, and numerous other little shops. Not exactly the layout that's shown here, but still keeping with what was proposed in the original Powers Ferry Master Plan. Down here to the south, we have the shopping center, which is on the corner of Powers Ferry and Terrell Mill, and then to the west of that is residential, which some of that exists. Cornelia, let's go back to the previous picture. Now, one of the things that was not contemplated back then was the Powers Ferry, or the Terrell Mill Windy Hill connector. And that goes basically from Bentley Road, which is in the middle of the screen on Terrell Mill, and it kind of makes a lazy S and comes out pretty much at the W for Windy Hill. All right, and that's going through residential and some commercial property. So that was not something that, because originally the extension was going to be closer to 75. Okay, let's go to page 98. Now remember, these are all in the Powers Ferry Master Plan, which is about 6 or 7 years old. And it has been updated at the 5-year mark. So now this shows, this is kind of the parks and open space conceptual plan that came out of the master plan. You see the park access points. And actually one of those, with what's coming forward, Cousins is going to donate the buffer, so that access point in the furthest one to the north is actually going to be county-owned property, so that's going to be consistent with the plan. But once again, you see that this whole area, there was talk about various components, because when we move forward with my proposal, I just wanted to see this. All right, now we're going to go to Appendix 6. This is from a 2017. So this was part of the 5-year update. So now what you see is the village concept remained, but some of the other things that changed was catalyst areas were added. One of them is right where ZD12 was approved, okay, that circle to the northeast, right there by the triangle. Then the other one is up by Delk Road. That's where the PVC was, where that was approved. And then the other one is down here along Windy Hill. And the board recently approved, there's a self-storage facility going down there that took out one of the extended stay hotels. So that's kind of what was envisioned, you know, so similar concepts to the original plan. Now let's go to Appendix 4, which was updated just this past year. So the first thing is on page 61. So you got to turn that, Cornelius. It's in the one you have on the. So if you look at HDR P7, okay, it says in order to better implement and promote the revitalization, rejuvenation of land uses within. You can read that part, but the new development should be constructed, down a little bit more, in a manner that supports the goals and policies of the Powers Ferry Master Plan. Board encourages sustainable mixed-use development, including residential, commercial, and office uses within the village. So the village has continued through the entire time, which is what the board approved, and the catalyst sites, as well as rehabilitation, redevelopment of the multifamily dwellings within the redevelopment area. Those multifamily dwellings are some of the ones that are along the Windy Hill Terrell Mill connector. Okay, all right, so now let's turn the page 63. All right, so this is the most current land use map in any of the plans. This is the most recent one, and you will see it's a little bit blurry, but so this really does not, it just a little bit addresses the village area. You can see Terrell Mill Road there by 75, but it really doesn't have in the upper corner there, which is not on this map. So this is why originally I brought in the other areas between Windy Hill and Terrell Mill, because those are what are really kind of addressed in here. This kind of better reflects, I know there's the big white area there, but this kind of more reflects the impact from the Windy Hill Terrell Mill connector. So what I looked at was kind of this along with the proposed village changes. All right, so Cornelius, now let's put up the, or ZD12, let's put up that one first. Oh, this map's fine. We can do this one. So ZD12, you can see right there, it's a mix of medium density residential down there in the lower corner, a CAC, the public institutional, which was the old Brumby School, and then the small little shop. Just as a note, where the letters CAC are on the northern part there, that is a power substation. So that's not going to change. It's not going away. So the board approved, in essence, the village. That was part of the master plan. Mm-hmm. The problem is that it was the only way to approve all the components because of zero lot lines and some other things was RRC. Which is reflective of what's there. So that is why ZD12 was originally proposed to be changed to Regional Activity Center, because the zoning is what goes in a Regional Activity Center. The concern was that you couldn't really put a Regional Activity Center there without having it connected to the rest of the Regional Activity Center, which it currently would not be. So that's where CP 2-1 came in, was to expand the Regional Activity Center. And now to kind of talk about what the board's past plans have been, Regional Activity Center comes up into Wildwood. You can see the boundary there on the eastern side. There are text amendments and land use. If you see that as you come across Powers Ferry Road, it goes to the CAC and then it goes down to MDR, and there's kind of almost a line going across Terrell Mill. That's because there's a text amendment that says that the creek under Terrell Mill is the end of high density residential or commercial, and it pretty much goes from there all the way to Woodlawn at Johnson Ferry, with the exception of some grandfathered, there's 2 commercial properties. So I think in moving forward that on the CP 2.1 part, Jason, what I would like to do is leave the PRC parts, okay? The The real thin green PRC part you see is Rottenwood Creek. All right, so that's not gonna be developed. The questionable area was the, where it says RM8. That is a very steep ravine. One of the reasons why the Windy Hill Terminal Connector Road was moved was because there was a $10 million bridge just to cross the ravine. It's also where the large water main replacements that the Cobb Marietta Water Authority just put in, that's where that goes through. So, you know, and kind of looking at that, that's not going to be developed. So I would like to leave that the way it is. For a CP 2-1, I think what I'm going to do is change it so that the extension of the rack only goes up to Terrell Mill Road. Like I said, the county's gonna be putting another road through there with the Windy Hill Terrell Mill connector. And then leave the HDRs the way they are. And then this is where Michael, Rob, well, actually, Rob, you were over there long enough to, since you're here, I wasn't planning on you being here. Technically, ZD12 should be a rack. It has to be something because it's a unified development now. So what would be your suggestion? Do I make it all a CAC? Which, I mean, it's, you know, unless I make it a rack, it's going to be non-compliant. But at the same time, I kind of like the idea of leaving the CAC transition along Powers Ferry to kind of signify that nothing has changed on future development going into East Cobb.
Commissioner, I think the Community Activity Center would be appropriate. I would suggest, though, that Mr. Gaines and his staff probably develop a specific text amendment that describes why it is indeed a community activity center.
Versus a rack.
Versus a rack.
Okay.
It's kind of similar to the situation we had with Commissioner Cupid's amendment a little bit ago, you know, where you have a NAC, and clearly that falls within, the land use falls within a NAC. I think you're right. This particular land use would probably look more like a rack as far as a map goes, unless there was kind of a specific reference in the text or a description that differentiated it
Right, okay.
between what you'd normally see on the map.
All right, Jason, did you follow that?
All right,
So
just so
that's
we're
for
clear, we're
ZD12?
talking about
Yeah,
CP,
that-
we're talking about CP 2-1
Well, yeah, so what Rob's talking about, we'll do with ZD12.
with ZD12. Okay, all right. all
Right, so on CP 2-1, my motion's going to be that the areas that are listed in green as PRC will remain PRC. And then only the areas south of Terrell Mill Road will be changed to a regional activity center. And the rest of CP 2-1 will remain in its current category.
Right, which is HDR, correct?
Correct.
Yes, I have that, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion. Let's do two separate motions, all right? So we have a motion on ZD12. Do we have a second on that one?
Actually, oh, wait,
Oops,
hold
we're
on.
not, we don't have a motion on ZD12.
No, I forgot the other thing. The portion south of Terrell Mill Road that's a CAC will remain a CAC.
What about the O and
All right, that's fine. It can be in a CAC. That's still in a category. So basically what, I mean, and the text amendment that we use in ZD12 will also be used in CP 2-1 to indicate that the CAC along Powers Ferry Road is to indicate that that is the transition to less intense use as you cross Powers Ferry Road and move east on Terrell Mill. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So basically you're just gonna leave and we have that little NS part, just leave that as a CAC 2 so that we make it simple. All right, so to revise my motion that the areas that are PRC will remain PRC.
Okay,
The areas that are CAC south of Terrell Mill Road will remain as a CAC.
okay, that's the red.
Yep. Everything else will be change to a regional activity center as proposed.
That's in the brown,
Yes.
okay?
And then everything north of Terrell Mill
Right,
that is HDR will remain HDR.
okay.
Okay, what about this little MDR up here in our?
Okay, that's CD12.
And it's all gonna be NAC.
No,
I
we're
mean,
doing these one at a
okay.
time. I mean, we talked about them all
Uh-huh.
together.
Right.
But I'm just making a motion for 2-1 first.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor for CP 2-1. Do we have a second? I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay. So now we'll have discussion about that. All right.
I would leave the south of Terrell Mill HDR.
Why?
Well, doesn't arm 12 fit in HDR?
Yes, but with the,
Why would that be a rack?
okay,
I'd
because
have
with,
it a CAC before a rack's too intense for.
all right, well, first off, the residential densities, well, with the addition of the road, the county's adding 4,400 linear feet of now access to the properties that are there, okay? That opens them for future redevelopment.
Right.
Okay, remember that in the Power Spring Master Plan, this is listed as a redevelopment area. And so just to keep it as HDR, I don't want all those apartments there. I want to get rid of the apartments. I want to encourage commercial or more intense development because it does a number of things. It gets rid of old apartments, but it also improves the, it helps with Brumby because these apartments are the ones that contribute a lot of children, and I'm trying to keep Brumby from going over capacity because that was the problem with the old school, is that there were too many apartments feeding into Brumby. So this is an effort to signal to redevelopment that I want to do more than just what's there right now. Now, it could be apartments. I mean, I don't have a problem with apartments there. I just think that I want to encourage redevelopment along that 4,400 linear feet to potential commercial or offices, because if you look at the Power Spring Master Plan, that's what it said that the community wanted in that area. They wanted live, work, and play. There's offices down here in Wildwood, which now are almost completely filled, which they were not back then. And so by going to a regional activity center, I open up the opportunity to potentially have more commercial properties or office buildings.
Okay, yeah, Commissioner Gamble, you had a comment?
So in your motion, Commissioner Ott, you wanted to do it to make your motion to a rack, but would you remain the HDR, RS and OSR portion with that?
Rob, that would allow me to still have office buildings, right, with those subcategories?
I believe it would, yes, sir.
And then also, on your appendix 4, page 63 that you showed earlier,
Right,
this one.
right.
It's hard to tell if it's just the map, but it looks like the PRC portion has been removed, and it's been the teal color. So when you're cleaning up this one and leaving the PRC, do you want to have this addressed as well?
Well, the PRC, we
accurate?
do have it going all the way from, on this map. That
Right,
would be one that we'd have to come back next year.
but this one is more current. This is the 2018, and it
Right.
does not show the PRC on there. So would we want to make sure that this gets
Well, but
addressed as well?
we can't update that today.
Is that the master plan?
Yeah, this is the 2040.
That's a
Oh,
2040 plan.
2040 plan.
Right, so what happens is when we update this future land use map, this future land use map goes into the comprehensive plan. So they may not exactly match, but when we come forward with updates to the comprehensive plan, then what I would anticipate would be staff would then correct that diagram to match this one. But the future land use map is part of the comp plan.
And actually, this is all rack county.
Right. But
Okay.
yeah, but the Rottenwood, I mean, where Commissioner Gambrell is going is that the Rottenwood Creek continues down into the rack.
It does.
So it may be that next year, as part of a CP, that we come back in, because there is a Rottenwood Trail, that's part of the Bob Kellen Trail.
Right.
That we come back in and just show that as being PRC. Commissioner Cupid, you look like you have a question or concern.
Yeah, there's a lot of absorbing here, and I'm sorry I had to walk out briefly. This is a lot to absorb within this amount of time, and even from reading the book and having this discussion is just a lot to absorb. But I can understand your proposed changes in light of the plan that you have. Did you talk about the Terrell Mill connector?
We did.
Where is it going to?
Okay, so that was kind of when you stepped away. So if you look at the,
You need to expand the map,
well, no, you can see well,
because it doesn't go down to Windy Hill on this map.
but Commissioner Cupid, if you see the two yellow lines that kind of cut through the middle of the HDR, that's Bentley Road. The Terrell Mill Windy Hill connector comes out on Terrell Mill right opposite that.
So can that hand please follow where that road will
And
be?
then it kind of makes a lazy S to the west. No, that's east.
west.
So it comes south.
Yeah, it
Yes.
comes south and then kind of goes through the CP where it says CP 2-1, then down by the M and RM12, and then kind of comes down and then connects down to Windy Hill Road.
So this is giving me great trouble, and it somewhat dovetails into the comments that you shared. And I know from spending time in District 2, you have a lot of apartments, and as you acknowledged, some of them are older apartments. And this gets to a broader policy discussion about affordable housing in a sense. And this is something I've been dealing with in District 4. I hear from residents in District 4 about how unaffordable housing is becoming in District 2. And I am concerned, even listening to the Terrell Mill Connector project, because I have people reaching out to me with respect to that, because it is displacing residents. And this change facilitates that continued displacement. If I can echo some of the comments you made, that there's too many old apartments that feed, and you also talked about how they feed into Brumby, and I know that there's concerns about, which I have also with respect to transiency. But if there's too many kids feeding into Brumby, is that a policy decision for us to make or for the schools to make? Because typically schools respond to population growth. They don't build in anticipation of, from what I've seen. They're typically reactive to the population. And what I see from this is an impact to a vulnerable population that we have not come together to really discuss as a board about how we are providing housing to those that are struggling to maintain housing in Cobb County. And do I think it's fair that you have to bear the brunt of it, or I have to bear the brunt of it, and Cobb County as a whole isn't doing that? You know, and should we not be able to follow a vision for improving our districts to do it? I certainly want to follow a path for District 4 to improve the quality of housing in it. It's just, this decision will have a very real impact on how we regard that population. And I'm hoping very soon and very soon, that we have a robust discussion and plan as a board about how we absorb this, because we're making these minor decisions to improve the quality of life in our area and saying we want affordable housing at the same time while we're making policy and planning decisions that diminish that capability. And I don't want all of it to be falling in me to have to be the safety net for it either, because I feel like these issues should be shared by the county. So I'm very torn about this. It's a lot going on here.
There is a lot going on, but at the same time, that's why there was a master plan done in this area. And so one of the things, and if there's one area that I'm real familiar with, I live a quarter mile away from here. And when I got started with all this about 20 years ago, Brumby had an 86% transient rate. And it was because every apartment complex in a downturn offers first month free rent. And all that happens is people just move from apartment to apartment to apartment. And Jeannie Bird, the original principal at Brumby, when we got started, we went out and tried to get the apartment complexes to change to a free month at the end of a 12-year lease, okay, every 12-month lease. But the problem is, and when you talk to the folks at Brumby, this board, because this board is the one that approved all the apartments in the beginning, this board, yes, we do have a responsibility the school district can only do so much. They have to provide education for anyone that lives in the area. The problem is that the Brumby School District goes all the way over to into the edge of Smyrna. And so it's a little bit at a time. You know, some of the things that as apartment complexes came forward in Cumberland, I had a bigger push towards one-bedroom apartments instead of 2 and 3, because that was to reduce the number of potential students going into the school. Do I expect these apartment complexes to tear down anytime soon? No, because the average occupancy rate in District 2 apartments right now is 93%. And in Cumberland area, it's 95%. So these are not going to get torn down anytime soon. You know, whatever the rent price is, that is just supply and demand. When you have 93 to 94% occupancy rate, the apartment complexes can charge a premium. The bigger concern here is the Windy Hill Terminal Connector is a reliever road for Powers Ferry. With the increase or the influx of folks into the community, because since I started this 20 years ago, we've added almost 5,000 residences. There is a need for more commercial retail shops and things like that. And so the Windy Hill Terminal Connector is a natural place for that to happen. So, you know, the Regional Activity Center just would allow a more intense development, whether it be residential, because right now, with the way it is, you're kind of limited to 12 units to the acre for residential. Under the Regional Activity Center, you could potentially go higher.
RAC permits, well, the commercial category does it not permit high-density residential?
No, but the Regional Activity Center has subcategories. And you have to keep in mind, too, that now, even since the Powers Ferry Master Plan was done with the managed lanes, and this is the beauty of the Windy Hill Terminal Connector, it literally will now allow a connection from Delk Road all the way down to Interstate North Parkway at 285. There are multiple residential units along Bentley. You have full interstate access at Delk Road and Windy Hill, and you have managed lane access at Terrell Mill. And so I would actually expect more residential development to come in here because of that access and the ease of getting from one place to another. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, as a commissioner for this area, I have to be concerned with the impact of zoning's decisions this board makes on the school.
Yes, I think we are, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we shouldn't be sensitive to that. My broader issue is looking at, again, this impact, again, on a population or a class of people within Cobb that just seem to be programmed out of how we consider things. And I could say, even when we plan for District 4, the people that show up are the ones that get impacted by these plans. The people, the vulnerable populations that get roads going through them, whether it be Windy Mac or, you know, they're not the ones that are saying, rah, rah, we want this. It's those that are most vulnerable that are impacted by these type of projects. And I'm torn, you know, again, how can I not support you? And I'm looking for support for the improvement of what's going on in.
Well, here's one way to look at it, Commissioner Cupid. What I don't want to stay there is HDR, because I don't want it to be implied that I just want residential. So if I were not to put it as a RAC, I would put it as a CAC. But the problem with that is now that clearly says that I don't want any residential, and that's not the case because
You can't put in residential in a CAC.
no, but you can in a RAC. Because a CAC is purely commercial, and a regional activity center allows with subcategories both. So by going to a regional activity center, I am indicating that I'm open to multiple different uses. But if it was just a CAC, that's basically just
I
commercial.
hear you, but the type of high-density residential I see coming in, this is a different breed of high-density residential. So
Well, but we can't dictate market.
Look, once we agreed to build the bypass, it was gonna drive the kind of development that goes there.
Correct.
If you left it alone, we wouldn't have this discussion, but once we approved that bypass, you know, the market's gonna take over from there, and we can sit here and have these discussions, and trust me, Commissioner Guy, I'm sensitive to what you're saying. But I'm also well aware that there are forces well beyond this board that are gonna drive things that, whether we like it or not, because we live in a capitalist society,
Yeah.
that's gonna make a decision about what goes in there once that road
But
is
it's also
approved.
by
But we're
not
facilitating.
changing,
It's not just the market. We're about to make a policy decision to anticipate what we think the market's
Yeah,
gonna do.
but
So
we
it's
did
not
that with the
totally just
we
the
did that
market
with the
in itself.
bypass.
what I would say, Commissioner Cupid, is that I would totally understand the comments you're making if we were leaving the entire proposal, all the parts to a rack. But I'm greatly reducing the area by limiting it
I
to
hear
Terrell
you.
Mill.
I hear you.
Okay?
I hear you.
So all that HDR that is north of Terrell Mill, that is all apartments.
Okay.
That is all multifamily development. The only area that I'm saying that I would like to encourage different types of development is, as the chairman said, along that Windy Hill Terrell Mill connector, which is why I'm changing the CP to show rack just below Terrell Mill and leave everything above it as HDR.
Yeah, I hear you.
So,
Okay, one last comment.
Okay. I know we're on the
Your microphone.
I know we're on the CP 2-1, but the ZD 12 is the Kroger and apartments and storage that was just zoned this year. So there are apartments going in there, but you're requesting that all be changed to a rack.
no, well, we're gonna get to ZD12 in a minute. Let's just stick with the CP right now.
Okay, well, I would support a CAC.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor, and I'm gonna call a question.
With
And
consternation.
it passes 4-1 with Commissioner Burrow opposition. So that's CP2-1.
Okay, so now ZD12.
12.
And Commissioner Burrow is correct that it does have apartments in there, okay? But in the interest of, and when you talk like Rob's comment, to indicate that there is a transition, what I'm gonna do is propose a motion for ZD12 that the entire ZD12 be changed to a CAC with the text amendment that we talked about, that although there is residential in this, this is to indicate the board's desire to have this as a transition, as a step down, as you come across Powers Ferry to less intense development. Because Commissioner Cupid, if you look at this one, we have VLDR. My neighborhood is VLDR. And so, I mean, that transition from a rack to a CAC to MDR to VLDR, I mean, that's kind of a unique transition. So, so that would be my motion, that ZD12 in its entirety be labeled as a CAC with the text amendment.
Second.
We have a second. And what would the text amendment be, Commissioner Ott?
The text amendment would be something to the effect that says that although this has residential in it and has the intensity of a regional activity center, it is intended by the CAC to show the board's desire that this begin the transition moving east into East Cobb, transitioning from higher development or higher density development to residential.
Okay, so when you go back and watch the video, Jason, whatever he said. All right. any other
And they're gonna
discussion?
get coaching from Rob.
Right.
Is that pretty much what?
Yes, sir. And I was going to add with Commissioner Ott, and I believe if Commissioner Burrow was the second, we could always make sure that we brought the text amendment back just for confirmation, if that was
Yeah, why
acceptable
don't
to
we
the
do that?
two
Let's do
commissioners
that.
that made the motion.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0. All right, Jason, let's go to staff proposals.
Okay. We have 4 staff proposal items, the first of which has 7 sub-items, and it is a proposal to change the future land use to Parks, Recreation, and Conservation for properties purchased by Cobb County with Parks Bond funding. So there's 7 sites labeled SP1A through G. The Planning Commission's recommendation is approval for all 7 sites.
Okay, so does anyone in the public like to make a comment on the recommendation for approval for SP1? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. You said you'd like to make a comment, and that's what it's for.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Patterson, and I'm a resident of District 2. I would like to suggest changing the Parks, Recreation, Conservation category, which is currently abbreviated as PRC, to two categories. One category would be Parks, Recreation, and the second category would be Conservation. Properties like Maybury Park are suitable for recreation, with picnic areas and playgrounds. Other park bond properties, like the gorgeous Kemp Family Park, should have a conservation designation to protect its woods, pastures, and streams as passive green space. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. Roberta, please.
Good morning. I'm Roberta Cook, and I'm a member of the Cobb Parks Coalition who actively supported both Park Bond 2006 and 2008 to buy land for passive parks. As a result, the county acquired well over 600 acres. As Cynthia mentioned, right now the proposal is to categorize them PRC, which is appropriate. So I would encourage you to do that. But I also agree that the category be separated into PR for Parks and Recreation, which is much different than the C category, or I'm asking to add a C category for conservation, because typically Parks and Recreation are sports-oriented, which is a lot different than a passive park. Along with the park bond properties, other properties that should be considered conservation are the floodplain properties that have been acquired by our stormwater department. So I think they should be designated in the C category as well. So I'd appreciate it if you would give consideration of changing the categories. I don't know if you're in that mode right now, but I'd like to see the categories changed to PR as one category and C for conservation category, and the park bond properties and stormwater floodplain properties BC category. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And I think to change the categories require an agenda item, but as an intermediary measure, if we approve these today, then they'll at least be all protected by the PRC.
Right.
And then we can bring forward later on a discussion about the new categories to see if there's support from the board for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Would that be like next year or this year? You were talking about coming back and reviewing.
That would be a code change.
Would that be this year, do you think?
Yeah, we're only in January, and we still have a whole year in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that. Sure.
Okay.
Right. So, but what I recommend is you work with the liaison for community development to work on that proposal to bring it forward to the agenda item, see if there's support for it. Okay. Any other comment from the public? Is there any other comment from the board? I'm sorry?
Norm raised his hand.
I just wanted to say I agree.
Okay, thank
Thank you, Norm.
Okay. Is there any further public comment? Is there a comment from the board on SP1? And seeing none, I will accept that. I'm going to roll this all into a consent agenda. I don't think this, my sense of the public in here is we can do this at one time.
Very good, sir. SP2 is a countywide consideration to add completed studies to the supplemental studies section of the comprehensive plan, specifically the addition of the recent Cobb Parks master plan to that list. The Planning Commission recommends approval of that item.
Is there any comment from the public on the recommendation for approval for SP2? Any comment from the board? Seeing none, we'll accept that.
SP3 is in Commission Districts 2 and 4. It's to add approved design guideline areas to the comprehensive plan. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Okay. Is there any comment from the public on the recommendation for approval for SP3? Is there any comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll accept that.
Okay. And the final item is SP4. It's a countywide consideration to update the list of properties contained within the redevelopment inventory. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Is there any comment from the public on the recommendation for approval for SP4? Any comments from the board? Commissioner Ott.
I just want to commend staff for taking District 2 from having, I think we had 6 or 8 when we started this redevelopment inventory, and we have none today. So I want to commend staff for a great job of redeveloping those areas that we said we wanted to redevelop.
Commissioner Burrow.
I agree. Thank you to staff for working with us through the years. I went from 17 in 2012 to 4. Sprayberry Crossing, still there. So my only concern, and we can discuss this, individually, but some of these properties, I understand they're eligible and they qualify to be on the redevelopment list, and there are tax incentives or credits that go along with those in the enterprise zone and rehab zones and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But when an owner isn't interested in selling, because I've sent potential buyers to a couple of mine on Canton Road, and they're not willing to sell. But they're sitting there vacant and in disrepair. So Michael Hughes may have some suggestions or help, or you, or how we can work with the owners to, get these off the redevelopment list. So thank you.
All right. Seeing none, we'll accept that. And with that, I move that we approve SP1, SP2, SP3, and SP4. Have a second. Any other discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Great job today, board.